It's the DORK podcast. It's the DORK podcast. Rich Keefe. It's the DORK podcast. Hashtag. It's the hashtag DORK podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hashtag Dork. My name is Rich Keefe, joined as always by Davey Eyeballs. He is Rooftop Von Dooftop. He is promo code Ron Von D. All hail the king of ginger ale. It's Ryan Davey. Davey, how are you?
Having a wonderful night, Richard. I'm
Good.
fully recovered now from my from last week.
The devil's itch.
The hell's itch, suicide itch.
Had you?
Had me, but we're on the other side of it now. I feel.
How
good.
do you treat it, Ryan? Did you find a way to treat it?
So Benadryl.
Okay.
Ibuprofen, water. So that's what gets you through it, man.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Ryan, let me tell you this. So we're going to be joined shortly by our murder mystery crew, but we have a few minutes here before they join us. I got to tell you, you are the busiest man in the hashtag Dork shared Gooniverse.
I am.
Since our last episode, you have been on a couple of different episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I have comments about both of them.
Sure.
First, you were on the Pop Culture Pile Driver with our buddies Jason Rossi and Billy D. I am going to present to you what they refer to as the compliment sandwich, where you compliment somebody.
Yes.
You rip them, because that's really the whole purpose of why you're doing
this.
That's
why, and that's when people talk about that, especially in education. It's a way to tell someone they did something incorrectly.
And here's actually the root of it. I don't know if I believe the compliment. I know I believe the insult, and then I'm going to give you another half-ass compliment after that.
Just to make it not sting, not give you the hell's itch, not to make it sting afterwards.
So let me explain to you what happened here, Ryan. You went on Pop Culture Pile Driver.
Yes.
They did a episode. You were also on with Mac from the Mac and Goo podcast.
Yes, I'm making quotation fingers right now. They did a...
Hold on.
Yeah, okay.
They wanted to create the best song, and you had to basically draft like a band, but also a producer. But like, how are you going to come up with the best song, right? So it's all musicians and things like that. Great idea. That's the compliment.
Yes.
Jason Rossi doesn't know what a draft is, because as he's doing it, he says, all right, we're going to draft. We pulled the order, and oh, by the way, and a couple other caveats. He's like, just living musicians. I'm like, okay, fine. You want to do living musicians? And oh, by the way, if you want to draft somebody that somebody else has already drafted, you can. Not a draft.
And I go,
a draft.
I go, what?
What insane.
Like, that's not a draft.
So basically, what you guys could have done, presented your lists. And then they had the audacity to write out on the thing, like, who had the best draft? I don't fucking know. Nobody did, because they all just showed up with their 5 persons that they had in mind. There's no homework. You show up with exactly who you want. It doesn't make any sense, because you could give a shit. You don't even have to listen to the rest of it. Mac could be up, like, Mac's pick is this, and you could just be looking at your list being like, doesn't matter, because I'm about to say what mine is anyway. Well, so it wasn't a draft, and that's bullshit.
Well, it worked out for me because I went in there with a clear plan.
Yeah.
And
it drove me nuts.
But I clearly had an idea of what my song was going to sound like.
And you could have picked anybody you wanted.
I didn't have to, because I won that vote.
Yeah, you smoked that
running
vote.
Away. Yeah.
But it's bullshit. And to call it a draft made me upset. I hate listening to the whole episode knowing that it wasn't even a draft. Now I'll end the compliment sandwich by saying those are some good guys.
Those are some good. They're awesome. They were so,
I do like those guys.
So nice. And then yesterday I went on the Change My Mind podcast.
Yes, you did, with Nick Fryer and Wesley Sykes, also part of the universe.
What we did was a draft, and we were drafting the best chain restaurants, sit-down chain restaurants. And I said to them backstage, I said, just before you hit record, I want to get this straight right now. Nick and Wes, do you know what a draft is? And they both started cackling, laughing. They're like, what the hell is Rossi doing? Yeah, so they did.
You guys just all sit there. You're like, Olive Garden. I will also have Olive Garden. And I will have Olive Garden, and I will have Olive Garden. Yes. That's what you guys could have done. By the way, true story. I don't know what it says about me or our podcast, but we were closing in on 200 episodes just on WEEI. Probably have another close to 100 back in the day as well, right?
That's a lot of episodes.
My wife listened to more of that episode of Change My Mind. In fact, watched it.
She was on it. She was commenting.
She watched more of that episode than I swear to God any episode of Dork combined.
I think it was
told her.
yeah.
So she was working, right? So she was working late. She gets home, and I was just making conversation, as I do. And I said, "Oh, like Davey went on this podcast. Actually, it's still going on right now, but they are drafting chain restaurants, and he had the first pick. Guess what he picked? Like I was just making conversation.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh." Next thing I know, she's on her phone and she's sitting there watching it. I'm like, you've never even seen an episode of this podcast.
No, but it's good. Like it was on Facebook Live. It was on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
It was on Twitter. So I mean, it was everywhere. People can find it. The Gooniverse. It's working. Katie's watching it. It's working.
So anyway, Davey's everywhere. So if you want to see Davey, he's on every goddamn episode of this.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck. What's the guy's name? The one guy that is on Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, Luke Cage, Iron Fist. There's
Foggy
the one
Nelson?
No, not Foggy. It's the guy. He's a shit bum. He's like a shitty crook.
Oh, yeah.
That's who you are. You're in every episode.
The Foggy Nelson of the Gooniverse. I'm just everywhere.
It's not Foggy Nelson.
I know,
it's
but
not
I'm just
Foggy Nelson. It's not Foggy Nelson. All right, Ryan, let's get to the news.
Sure. Whenever you're ready.
What?
Whenever you're ready.
Could you hear that?
Nope.
Son of a bitch. We've screwed the pooch.
We're both goose and pork. Just get to it. Screw it. We'll fix it in post.
This week in Dork. Ryan, a couple of comic book news. A couple of really good comic book news. DC has a thing called the Black Label, which is a little bit more adult fare, as it were. And they are introducing a couple of things. One, Tom King is going to write a Rorschach comic.
Awesome. I'm confused. I'm confused though, because the description you sent out, it's set 30 years after the events of Watchmen.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to be the real Rorschach or if it's going to be people inspired by Rorschach, like the TV show, or how it's really going to play. But if it's truly 30 years after, then Rorschach's dead.
Because Rorschach, again, that book is 40 years old at this point. He gets blown up at the end of the. I'm
fascinated though. It comes out in October. It's Tom King. Also in the fall, one of our favorites is back. American Vampire.
Oh, I can't wait.
Snyder at the helm of this. This is going to be. Rorschach's going to be 12 issues. American Vampire is going to be 9.
Can't wait.
Can't wait for both. Super excited. Coming to Netflix, Ryan. Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling are going to be in a Russo brothers film called The Gray Man, which has a budget of
Sexy Man and Sexy Man.
The sexiest men alive. $200 million Netflix is sinking into this.
All right, so
it's Russo brothers. It'll probably be good.
It's Russo brothers. It's going to be good. I have a Festivus airing of grievances with you. So you said in a tweet, and I know it was good-natured. You said, "Oh, Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans are going to be in a movie together. They're finally making the movie about the Dork #Dork podcast."
Right.
You open the door for the Bruce Valanche conversation to come back.
Not me though. I didn't start that. I had nothing to do with the Bruce Valanche.
No, you didn't, but you opened the door. You're like,
I actually was paying you a compliment. You can even choose Evans or Gosling. I don't care. I'll be the other guy. You're whoever you want to be.
I think the lady backstage right now would prefer I take Gosling.
All right, you're Gosling. I'm Evans. Captain America. No big deal. Not another teen movie showing the comic chops. Not a big deal. But The Gray Man coming out. Speaking of handsome hunks, Henry Cavill built a PC.
Did he ever?
What the fuck was
he doing the internet
for?
By storm?
Why did he do
apparently
that?
He almost missed a call from Zack Snyder and the DC people at DC and Warner Brothers to play Superman because he was playing World of Warcraft. He's a huge PC gamer. Like he was balls deep in like a whatever, and he almost missed the call.
He was
playing World of Warcraft.
This guy.
Do you see the size of the arms on him?
Speaking of tweets, your wife actually had the tweet of the week, and she's going to join us. She's going to join us coming up here shortly. But I made like a shitty joke, like, because Henry Cavill's building a PC, and it was like the talk of the internet. And I said, "Yeah, but can he please a woman?" Knowing quite well that he can please.
We know
a woman,
the answer.
Ryan.
Yeah,
that's not the point. But your wife tweeted the GIF of Jennifer Lawrence from Hunger Games saying, "I volunteer as tribute." Hilarious.
See, here's the thing.
I laughed out loud.
My wife and I have, and she'll attest to this too. We have the type of relationship where like. We call it like the I get it. Like, I get it. Like, so if like, I forget who it was the other day, but it was someone, we were talking about a female celebrity that basically, if she caught me in the act with like stealing a smooch with this celebrity, she'd be like, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
Like I'm pissed and I'm bummed out, but I get it. You know.
So my wife,
if I walk in at Henry Cavill, I'll start cheering. Get the
cheering.
air horn. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, no, come on. I mean, we're 12 years in. Come on.
That's what I said. So the other day, Erin Moriarty, who plays is it Stargirl in The Boys.
Mm-hmm.
She recently celebrated a birthday.
Sure.
I wished her a happy birthday. I also added sup, and my wife did not enjoy that as a tweet would go.
Yeah.
She didn't find it as funny as your wife would have.
Well, I think the other thing too, and she'll say this when she gets in here, is like my wife in the back of her head knows I have no shot. That I'm already over my head. But yeah, I got no shot.
She didn't care for it. I got a stern talking to. Ryan, Game of Thrones prequel is casting. It's called House of the Dragon. Are we getting back in? Are them Thrones boys going to ride again?
I don't know. If they're casting right now, ask me again in 5 years when it finally goes into production.
Well, hopefully this podcast is still up and
running. What the hell
Ryan.
else are we going to do?
Ryan, we got some other stuff, but let's just cut to the chase here. Let's get to the video game minute, shall we? What do you have?
So I am dozens of hours deep into Ghost of Tsushima right now. It is excellent.
Oh,
excellent. It's apples and oranges. People, game of the year, Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, like it's apples and oranges, but it's basically like Red Dead and Assassin's Creed together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But every idea that they have with those two games, they've kind of improved upon them. So like the horse, remember like you would ride a horse. I was saying on stream last night.
I remember riding a horse.
Right. I remember riding a horse. And remember like, there were times you'd be riding through the woods and you just be going straight and you see a line. All of a sudden your horse would like slam into a tree and you go flying.
Yeah, not great.
The horseback riding in this game is much more fluid. It's much more like intuitive. The controls are super, super sharp. And the game looks phenomenal. I've been sharing photos. You've seen the photos.
Looks
the
handsome.
The photo mode is incredible.
I like it.
Mess with like the depth of field. It's great. And the other thing I want to talk about, there's a game that's coming out. Or it's not anymore. This week, there was a trailer for a game called Gamer Girl. Now, the premise of this game, now I will add that the development team of this game are all men. And they're all youngish white men, if you've seen the development team. So it's a FMV, which is like a full movie. It's like a full motion video game. So it's like a movie, but you like make choices. It's like one of those things.
Okay, like Bandersnatch.
So you play... Your role in the game is as a moderator for a girl streamer's chat.
Okay.
And as the game progresses, the chat becomes more problematic and ventures into like stalker and like unhealthy shit.
Okay.
Who thought this was a good idea?
No.
In this day and age, and not only that, what game designers like, let's make a game about this, and what developer is like, I will give you money to put this to market. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And like I said to you, it might have been on this podcast. It might have been off air. I don't know. We were talking about cryptics and talking about UFOs and whatever. I am not surprised by anything anymore. It just seems as though everyone is just getting dumber.
Yeah. 100%.
Like I don't understand
find the joy in life.
I don't understand the world anymore.
Nope.
Like in everything that's going on, like you thought this was a good idea.
Terrible.
And this is like the dark, and obviously it's not coming out. They've shit canned it. Like, it's not coming out. So it was like a trailer for a game that they were going to make, and now people have just like canned it, which sucks because like there's people who like, and it's a shit game, but like people have like worked and like that was their job. Yeah. Now they're out of a job, So it's like that's terrible. But come on, man. Like I don't understand. In this day and age, like how you could do something like that. And the gaming community lately has been rife with this stuff about, the treatment of women is like, I think of like on Twitch and in the gaming industry, like it's kind of a cesspool right now. You have professional gamers. Yeah.
Speaking of women,
let's
bring in a couple
Let's bring them in.
Shall we? Let's bring in a couple right now.
So you've been listening. Hopefully you've been listening to what I'm saying. How do you feel about what I've just been talking about?
Yeah, I don't understand why anyone would say that was a good idea.
Right. Yeah, I'm surprised by nothing anymore. But I'm just like...
And you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be, Ryan. Ryan, let's bring back our murder mystery crew. We have the girl Rye, a.k.a. your wife. We have our resident #Dork attorney, Nicole, a.k.a. my sister-in-law. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Well.
Good.
Well.
Good. You ready to solve some mysteries?
I have so many questions for Nicole.
Okay.
No mystery, like no solving of any mysteries. Right?
Well, we're going to solve them. That's the beauty of it. We're going to solve them. But
Okay.
first, Ryan, let me ask you, are you ready for the topic du jour?
You're talking to me?
You asked.
Well, I didn't know who you were talking to. You just said Ryan. I didn't know who you were
It's
talking
the
to.
topic of the day.
Yeah.
And it is Unsolved Mysteries, season 15. Apparently, they're splitting it in half, but we got 6 episodes on Netflix. We will start, as we always do, with movie and TV reviews, spoiler free. Let me ask you guys, did you like it?
For the most part.
For the most part.
Yep.
Ooh.
I'm mixed.
Mixed. All
I will
right.
tell you this, and as the girl Rise my witness, I fell asleep in one episode.
He did. One of the better episodes, too.
I fell asleep in one too.
Mhm.
So yeah.
What? So there were 6 episodes. Let's start. Nicole, how many of the 6 did you find intriguing?
3.
Only half. Girl Rye.
4.
Yeah. Davey?
Same.
I
4.
think 4 sounds right to me too.
And this
or
this
maybe
is
even
the
5, honestly. Like I'm an easy target, and they're
Yeah,
only
you love
hour
this.
episodes. So
And the other
I
thing,
like
too,
this stuff.
is this the easiest score we've ever, because there's 6 episodes. You could, you know what I mean? So we do out of 6. So
Yes.
there's your score right there.
Yeah.
Would that be your overall score?
4. Yep.
You're going 4 out of 6. I would
Mhm.
go. So I think I liked 5 of the episodes, but it's not like the good episodes. It's not like they were amazing, right? It's not like
Right.
they were unbelievable. So I would probably say the show was a 4. It was very popular. That's why we're doing the episode.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say probably a 4. Nicole?
Probably a 3.
Oh, Jesus. Why do you even
I
you didn't even like
mean, I was very surprised by this because there is not a true crime murder mystery out there that I don't love. So
True.
Mhm.
But yeah, this one's a little bit. Girl Rye, what do you think?
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does this part, because I was talking to some people at work about it, including our buddy Jermaine Wiggins, and he really had a hard time with the fact that, the episode ends and you don't know what happened. And I had to tell him, well, Jermaine, the first word of the show is unsolved. They're not trying to swerve you. They are legit unsolved.
Mhm.
Does that bother you at all? Not that you guys are surprised at the end, but because we have seen so many documentaries now that basically tell you a whole story, and not all of them, but a good amount of them do have like an ending anyway. Does it bother you that you're sitting there 60 minutes and you're gonna get frustrated because there might be like an obvious candidate, or there might be an obvious motive, or whatever it might be, and it ends, they all end the same. If you have a tip, go to unsolved.com and blah 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 blah.
No, personally, I watched it back in the day, and it did actually help solve cases, because people who are out in the world can see these people, and they're like, oh my God, that's the guy who was in the show. So they'll give tips, and then mysteries really do get solved. So I feel like it's a way to get cold cases back in public view.
Yeah.
So if you go into it knowing that, but if you didn't watch the old one, how would you know that?
I thought what was interesting to me about this is not so much that they were unsolved, but why. So we'll get into it, but there's reasons why, not to it's going to be grim a little bit, but
Some of
certain
big time,
bodies you can't identify the cause of death because of certain things. So that was interesting to me, why they couldn't determine that.
So for me, if I'm remembering correctly, back in the day, a lot of the unsolved mysteries were unique or oddities, or there was some twist to them. And I guess I was wanting more of that with this, without giving things away. I thought it was a very yeah, that makes sense. It's unsolved.
Yeah. A few of them were like that, and then a few of them to me were just so frustrating because you're like, oh, that person did it, and you're just like,
but you can't prove it.
You can't, not only can you not prove it, but then again, it's also only an hour, so you're like, well, that's just the information that they're giving us. So
I didn't feel like we got I didn't feel like there was for some of them an attempt to do any sort of not deeper dive in an attempt to solve them, but I felt like a lot of it was very cursory.
Now, Nicole, I have a question for you. So this, in the last episode, and this isn't a spoiler, the detective in the last episode said something that you might be able to touch upon. He said there's a huge difference between knowing and proving.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, is that kind of the issue? like we'll get to the last episode, but like that's the one he's talking about. But you know for almost a fact that this is the person who was involved with this, but proving it is the issue, right?
Right. I think that's true for. I mean yes, that's accurate. And that's you have to be able to prove something. Doesn't matter because he knows it, but he doesn't really know it.
Yeah.
Right. It's common sense. It's like one of those it's common sense. Like of course that makes sense to me, but we need hard
evidence to
Correct.
bring into court to prove it that you can.
Correct.
And I felt our detective work together they could have used us.
They could have used this
entire
series. Well, I agree. We solved that goddamn murder mystery. Now it took us a while, and we got a few wrong, but we got there. We ended up solving it. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we get into the spoilers? I think the spoilers are the best part, obviously. So you guys kind of softly, barely recommend it by the sound of it.
I would.
I recommend it.
It's worth your time. Yeah. If you like this kind of thing, it's worth your time.
Yeah. And based on what's out there right now, too. There's still not a lot of shows out there. So let's go spoilers. We're going to go episode by episode. We will start with episode 1 called Mystery on the Rooftop. This is the story of a strange death of a 32-year-old writer and videographer, Ray Rivera, in Baltimore, where they find him. They're not sure if he jumped. They're not sure if he was placed there, but it's just a crazy story. It's also one where he was at home and then all of a sudden got a phone call, ran out. And it was eventually ruled a suicide, but his wife and people who know him are like, no way.
This to me was the best one.
Yes.
It's a good start. It's a good lead-in episode, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
His death was never, it was unsolved.
Never determined.
What is the word?
Undetermined.
Undetermined.
Right. Sorry. But there were theories of a suicide, but they just proved that. Okay.
Yes.
Now, I did find it interesting that because it was the first episode, I was like, all right, let's see how this is. I don't know if you guys thought of this too, but when they found items around his body was like destroyed. All the items were laid there like perfectly. I'm like, Jamie Banks!
Out the window!
Jamie Banks out the window. We said it out loud. When she brought out the flip-flops, I was like, it's the shoe.
It's the same story.
Yeah.
It's the same story.
Very similar.
The one flip-flop was ripped.
One flip-flop was ripped, but it was like, wasn't it his phone and his wallet and everything were like fine?
His glasses.
And I said, it was a Nokia phone. And I said, that doesn't say anything to me because those fucking things just don't break.
That's a good point. You can fire that thing off the roof.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
10 stories, doesn't matter. Not going to break.
Doesn't matter. The other couple of weird things with this one is there were some weird writings found around his house. And at first you were like, holy shit, that something's up there. But then his wife explained how like, oh yeah, he would constantly just be writing in notebooks and like, he was a writer and he had all these things. But the thing that he taped to the back of his computer screen was like quoting the Freemasons and had some other things. So
really strange.
Very strange.
Really strange. Because this one also pointed you in the direction of his friend who hired him and ran the business there, Porter Stansbury. Also, apparently, now there's conflicting things on the internet. The show said that he made everybody in his office, gave him a gag order for everybody in his office. The internet's saying like that's not entirely true. So this episode, again, because it's only 55 minutes or whatever, kind of points you only in Porter Stansbury's direction, being like, this guy knows something. Either he did it or he knows something. But I don't know. I just don't know if we have enough information on this.
So Nicole, can you talk about like gag orders and like how those work? Like, is it basically you lose your job? Like, I don't.
Well, you just sign a confidentiality agreement with someone, and then there's a fine attached to it if you break it. It's like an NDA.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how he could issue a gag order to employee. Like
that's why I don't know for like a criminal case.
A gag order would be from a judge, but they could have non-disclosure agreements, or he could tell them. I guess he could tell them not to talk, but I don't know unless they sign something. I don't know that he would really be able to do that.
It makes you look guilty to me. Like, I know you're not necessarily guilty. Like the person that immediately goes out there and hires a lawyer, you're not always guilty, but I just view it at that. And for him to be like, so this guy, Ray Rivera, worked in this company, and you would probably want to talk to people who knew him and be like, hey, what was going on with his life? And you're like, you can't talk to anybody. You're like,
and
what are you hiding?
The call that got him out of the house came from the company, but they didn't know from who because it was through a switchboard. That was the final call. So I was wondering, Nicole, do you think innocent people lawyer up that fast before even ever talking to someone?
I mean, it depends. When he refused to talk at all, I was like, oh, then that's strange to me.
You know,
Yeah.
Right. If this guy is such a good friend of yours and he goes missing and then he commits suicide and you're one of the last people he talked to, why wouldn't you give a statement? Like, why wouldn't you want to help? Right.
Right.
So that says something to me. I mean, but then again, I don't know if we know all the circumstances or did he talk to the police once and then get a weird vibe from them and then think to himself, oh, I better get an attorney. And because it looks like they're looking at me and had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know.
The other thing too that really bugged me out is he got supposedly jumped from the roof of this hotel, and there's the one time that the camera wasn't working on the roof.
Good point. Yeah, what's that about?
The one time that it was like, oh yeah, I did that for whatever reason that night, it just wasn't turned on.
So what I would have liked, where I guess my criticism of the show was, I just would have liked to seen more. Like throw a dummy off the roof. Or do something to not try to solve it, but just to give us a little bit more. Just a little bit more, so we could kind of,
It would have been sweet if they threw a dummy off the roof while playing like the Jackass music.
Yeah, I would have watched
just
that.
lighten it up a little bit,
Sure, just right because it was kind of a downer. Let's be honest, the whole thing was a downer. All these episodes were kind of.
What pisses me off too, and this is like a pet peeve of mine. And I was like livid at the end of this episode because this poor woman, his wife, was like. Really, and the whole family wanted answers, and they seemed like really good people, and to have like a whole police department basically be like, get over it.
Yeah.
Like I can't in my head, like I can't imagine how you say that to somebody. No. And like they took the guy, the lead detective, they take him off the case, like just send him wherever. He calls the woman.
Too.
Yeah, he calls the woman and is like, look, I'm sorry, I'm not on the case anymore. He was. Again, like a nice guy who was like, trying to help her out. And the police department was basically like, you're going to have to accept this. You're just going to have to get over it. Yeah. How do you say that to somebody?
Brutal.
Awful. Tough shit, man.
So do we have any theories for this?
I do. And one of them is, so they talk about his injuries, right? So that he had two broken, his leg was broken and like both of his legs were broken in multiple places. Right. Mm-hmm. But the thing that got me was like, not like you said, nothing on him was broken. It's like nothing and they said there was like metal. So there's like metal girders like in the roof. So how could he have jumped that far? I mean, the guy was a good athlete, but like, how could he have jumped that far, fallen so fast, presumably fallen on his head, right? But like, if you fell through that roof, wouldn't you get like ripped apart? And I know that's gross, but like, wouldn't that just like rip you apart?
I don't know how I fell through the roof.
Yeah, I don't really.
That's it. I don't know how he got.
I don't even know if he did because like
I don't think he did.
Was it his brother was talking about how like you can't even go into that hotel without people stopping you.
Right.
And there's it's condos, business offices. There's no, and then they show the hallway.
Nobody saw anything.
Nobody saw him, and the doors are typically locked. And it's like you have to know how to get. Like he'd clearly been up there before, but with who, when, if that was the case.
Now, Rich, you can appreciate this because the wife said, like, both of us, her and the husband, terrified of heights.
Right. So he wouldn't be up there.
He wouldn't be up there.
He would not be up there unless he was up there. The only thing I could think of for like any kind of motive, and they kind of alluded to it, but even his wife was confused, was like he knew something that like he wasn't supposed to know, or people were afraid that he knew it. And she's like, I don't even know what that could have been, but that's like the only kind of thing I could think of for him to be like getting a call, freaking out, running out, and I don't know.
Yeah, I realized I just didn't answer your question. You said you have any theories, so they did point to one thing. There was like some Russian stock that the Porter guy like put in his thing that said it was going to hit big, and then he got like a major fine from it.
Yes,
I'm saying it's Russians.
That's what I'm like to throw people out the window.
Yeah, that's a very Russian way to.
So the internet, if you want to go with Reddit, so like all that.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
So after I watched the episode, I clearly went on the internet And someone on Reddit was like, well, if you ever watch the movie The Game, which is one of the movies
Michael Douglas.
right. And he, like, that whole thing is about people working in finance. The game is they trick people into thinking they have nothing. So, like, what if it was something they were playing, he was playing some sort of game and then it went horribly wrong. And that's why he, like, left these clues. And
it's as good as anything I can think of.
Right.
I don't understand the note taped to the back of the computer.
Yeah,
like people trying to break into the house. Like, there were 2 attempted break-ins prior to him being found. I don't know. I think he was placed in the. I think someone made a hole and placed him in there and was like, they'll just think he jumped off the roof.
But how do you make that hole though? You know? And how about he fell into a room where they knew, like, the guy who was like the doorman at the hotel, he's like, yeah, people who work here know that room, but like no one would ever check there.
Right.
Like that's the place.
It's not frequently used.
Yeah. So right. If he didn't fall in there, well, I guess you just blow a hole through the roof to make it look like he fell through.
I guess. Because like the one place that people wouldn't check.
Yeah.
Right. And again, so like the body he was there for what, 8 days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the body's so and this is what I was alluding to in the beginning. The body's so decomposed that you can't
that's in a lot of these, unfortunately. Yeah.
I know. And so like that's like forensic evidence. You can't do anything with the body after a certain point.
Yeah, this one's so fucked though. This one's like, I don't know where you go. Like,
and Max at the Freemasons.
It's real.
That's what he was quoting. He was like, he was talking about the Freemasons in that list, and then he's like, got all these movies that he likes, and you're like, what is this? Like, are these? We're gonna dig into these? Is there clues in all these movies now?
Right.
Like,
well,
what are we doing?
He could also have just not been well.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, because the way they describe it in the episode, it's like there are these writings, and he's like got these movies and these quotes, and you're like, oh my god, what's up? And then his wife's like, oh yeah, he had like all these books that he would always be writing stuff, and none of it made sense. And you're like, okay, well,
I will say from firsthand experience that, God forbid, if my wife ever goes missing, and they look at her notes from when she's on the phone, it looks like the work of a lunatic.
I doodle.
She'll doodle, but she'll write the name of she'll write the name of the person she's talking to. She'll write the name of the school that the person works at. It's like madness when she gets.
So I'll be like, Ryan, look at all these clues, and you're like, oh, these are nothing.
And be like, no,
that's just. She wrap it in tape and stick it to the back of the computer.
Maybe I haven't checked.
You might want to get back there.
I did a lot of online treatments.
All right, so let's go to episode 2. Episode 2 is entitled 13 Minutes. It's the story of 38-year-old hair salon owner Patrice Andres, who vanishes in a 13-minute window of time, only for there to be a development in the case 600 days later. Now, this episode is super well known after the series because of her husband.
Oh my God,
Rob Andrus.
I was wringing my hands watching this episode.
Goosebumps. I had goosebumps with him.
This is what I'm talking about, where most of these episodes, whether the person did it or not, you just point to and you're like, well, this guy is this guy. And so Rob Andrus, who the internet, maybe Reddit, Rye, has dubbed him the new Carol Baskin.
Oh God, yeah.
He's the guy.
At best, after this episode, he is the most remarkable, unfathomable piece of shit I have ever. That's at best. Yeah.
So at first, because I was watching it, and at first I'm like, oh, okay, the police say his timeline matches up. So, okay, all right, maybe he just seems a little odd. And then,
and
then he talks about how, and then the son is like, and then he locked me out of the house the day after.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, oh, okay, so your wife goes missing. You don't know where she is. She hasn't found. And the first thing you do is change all your locks.
Change the locks. Like
that's you cut ties with your stepson, Pistol, who's in this whole episode. You feel terrible for him. Super controlling husband. Anytime a woman dies, the husband, Ryan, better or worse, the husband's the guy that you should look to first. They either know something or whatever, and just follow them. How do they sound? What are they saying? And when they say, hey, can you take her skeleton and place it in like what it would normally look like, and then I can dance with her skull, kind of a red flag.
And kiss
to me.
it.
Kiss the
And
skull.
then he
Hands on the
slept.
skull.
And then he slept with the ashes.
He still
Ashes.
sleeps with the ashes.
No, they were put in the closet with the empty bottle of wine.
When he ever said he never gave it, he refused to give any of her remains to the son.
And he said he kept it. He kept it away. He kept the box of her remains away from people. And then he says, especially Pistol.
What is that about?
Like, what the fuck? Like, you're just a piece of shit. Like, you're an asshole.
The biggest piece
An
of shit.
ass.
They already
Yeah.
said he was controlling, which again, if she's murdered, that is a huge red flag. And then everything he did after was suspicious. Now, the episode also points to potential alibis for him. First of all, one, he had one where he wasn't there, but that to me doesn't mean shit. Like, you can hire somebody to kidnap her, and then you can do the rest.
He said someone swiped my card at work. Anyone could have done that.
First of all, anybody could do that. And then he was so weird about like discussing it afterwards. He even had that line like, "Oh yeah, somebody like probably wheelbarrowed her over here, and they probably like kept her in there."
Kept her as a toy, and then referred to her himself as a teddy bear. Like, he was like, "I cuddle it like a teddy bear." I was like,
"He's where he should be, so I can protect her." I was like, "Oh yeah, you probably did it."
He definitely did it. Now,
not to switch gears, but can we just discuss how Pistol Black is the coolest name? Of
the badass
it's the coolest legal name of anyone ever.
It should be like in a movie or like a comic book or something coming up. Pistol Black. Now there's 2 serial killers in the area: Gary Michael Hilton and Jeremy Jones.
How crazy is that?
Crazy as fuck. Now the Gary Michael Hilton, there's a horrible story about this woman who was hiking in North Carolina. It's a pretty famous case, and he like basically took her and her dog, and then they like went away, and then like the dog got away. They found the dog 60 miles away 4 days later, and the woman they found like mutilated or whatever. And it was like one of these weird things where they even said it in the episode, like Gary Hilton would like get people and try to like con them first, and so he asked this woman like for her like PIN number to like her bank code or whatever, didn't get it, and then ended up like abducting her and killing her. So he was in the area, and it was either him or Jeremy Jones who they referenced in some sort of like confession. He said he loved to go to a salon, like a hair salon,
because they had cash on hand.
No,
like, shit.
No. That was him. Jones confessed, said he asked for her to jump his car and then killed her, but then he took it all back.
Right, because that's the other thing about serial killers is they confess all the time to stuff that they probably didn't do.
Yeah.
Right.
All the time. That's day one stuff. When you're
now, what did they say? Help me out. What did they say? The stuff that like, it's like killer only knowledge or something, like guilty party knowledge, or what do they call it? Is that what they call it? And I found that interesting too, that there's like information they couldn't say on the show because only the person who was there would know it.
Yeah, really interesting. And probably, I think they sort of got into like where the cars were parked and like that kind of thing. But I'm sure there's even a next level stuff where they're like, we can't say this because then you'll be getting confessions or like tips out of the woodwork. And you're like, well, did you really know that? Or you just,
Well, I wonder if that's how they disproved Jones. If they were like, okay, what was this? Because eventually they disregarded him too.
And I will say too, not to make light of the situation again too, but like the cop in this episode, I've never seen someone who looks more like a cop than this guy.
Oh yeah.
He is the cop. He is the police officerist looking police officer I've ever seen.
Was he the cute one?
He was the handsome one that you were. Yeah.
You were ogling the whole episode.
The only thing that had me was the police seemed pretty confident that the husband, that they couldn't rule him out completely, but that he was not being seriously looked at as a suspect.
Well, it's frustrating. It was like, because he knew, and maybe in that simple town, he was like, well, if I'm in place A and I can prove it, well, they know I'm not in place B. But you're like, well, so he couldn't have hired somebody? Like, fucking figure it out. Like, look at the way the guy acted.
Right.
Like, I still think it's 100% him, but it seems like he's going to get away with it. But it's just so messed up.
And the thing is, like,
and he's like even agreeing to do this interview and everything else. We're like, ugh.
Like the woman's body is even. Sorry.
What were you gonna say? No,
I was gonna say the woman's body's not even cold yet, and you're already changing the locks on the house.
Right.
Nuts.
Like that's
So
fucked.
he,
Like, and
it's
not
almost
let-
like he knew she wasn't coming back.
right.
You change your locks.
But even if now I don't have a stepson, but let's just say even if you have a stepson that you don't necessarily get along with, if his mother and your wife is gone, wouldn't you fucking come together in that moment and be like, let's find out what happened? Like, let's
Because you
figure
assume
this out.
that your wife's going to come home that you love so dearly,
Or
right?
that
and,
too.
Right.
And you want her to want to continue to live with you. And so you would maybe not want to have kicked her son out without any of his belongings and changed the locks.
Yeah, because if she
And-
came back and you'd be like, oh yeah, you changed the locks and kicked my son out of the house, I was gone for 2 days.
Mhm.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
that's
My
not
son
a
was
good look.
scared because his mom was gone and missing, and you couldn't find me, and you treated him like shit.
Yeah.
Like, even if I hated the kid,
right.
I would,
Right.
but like, again, I'm not a complete fucking lunatic sociopath.
No,
like
that's
this guy
true.
is.
That's the big difference between you and him.
Yeah.
Is that
That's
all right,
it.
so that one's kind of like we all think it's the husband. So
Mhm.
all right, episode 3 is the one international episode that they had. Now apparently they're going to be doing 6 more episodes coming to Netflix later this year, 2 of which I read are going to be international. But this is the only one, and this was called House of Terror. This one's the most fucked, by the way. And so this one is the murders of the DuPont.
I'm going to make it weirder for you.
Yeah.
You're going to make
Fell
it weirder?
My husband
asleep.
just took a nap. It wasn't even night. It was middle of the day.
You just took
Listen.
took a snooze during this one?
We had a
I
weighted
slept-
blanket.
I think I might have fallen asleep through this one too.
Wait a minute.
What?
I can't remember if it was this one or the
Just
one
a
before that I dozed
story
up.
of a family being-
It was really
No.
hard to follow, and I'm unhappy to hear that 6 more out of 6 more episodes, 2 more may be subtitled, because I like to listen while I do this and watch these kind of shows.
You
and maybe
gotta
able to
be
maybe
eyes
do
and
some other
ears
things in the background.
on the screen.
And
So I can't pronounce this family's name, but basically
Raken.
he's a very high end. Yeah, how do you say it?
I don't know.
Davey,
So
can you-
Legionnaire.
Just call him the DuPont.
Legionnaire.
DuPont de Legionnaire.
So
I
the
think
count. So basically, the count. This
call
is
him the
in
Count the rest of the time.
France, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So the count has a wife. He has 4 kids. Well, 3
Three biological.
biological kids, but 4 total kids. And we don't know that he did it, but we think that he did. Murdered all of them and buried them in the bottom of the house.
And the 2 dogs. Don't forget
And
the 2 dogs.
placed them in such a way where it was kind of a very religious type of thing.
Yeah.
so to me, this was the least surprising one. I'm like, okay, I mean, so what is the unsolved mystery here?
They
Well,
can't
they-
find him. Yeah.
They can't find him.
They
I have
can't find
2.
them.
I have 2 for you. 1,
Okay.
where is he? 2, why'd he do it?
I think they said it. It was
The
like,
why is-
Nope. Why? Because he's poor? So he decided to kill his whole
So-
family?
So there's another case years ago before this, where the husband basically came home and did the same thing and moved away and developed a different alias. I can't remember this case. I'll have to look it up, but came up with an alias, got married again after having killed his mother or mother-in-law, his wife, his 2 kids, and left them all in the house, and then just packed up, left, assumed a new name, got a new wife, and lived his life because he felt like a complete failure. He was about to go bankrupt, was going to lose his home. So, I mean, we've seen this story before, I guess, I feel like. And
So I would
Right,
just
but did they
say
find that
this
guy?
to me has to be
the guy I was talking about, yes, they
Yeah.
eventually found him years and years later after
So
he
I
didn't
think that's why, in my mind, they did the story because they want to find this
Find
man,
him,
and
right.
it's like that's
what is
the
that?
unsolved mystery of like we need to find this guy, figure out how the hell he just took a look at the camera and walked into the woods, and then no one ever saw
Yeah,
him
so
again.
that's what's crazy. And so this one has gotten a ton of tips ever since this episode came out. A lot of people think he's in Chicago, some think he's in Argentina, but the bottom line is he's been missing for 9 years and they don't know where he is. One of my theories though on this is, and what, you know, whether he's in his right mind or not is a different subject, but something like this, and to murder him in that way and then to put the bodies in the way that he did, I feel like this is one of those like Amityville horror type of the devil told me to, or somebody told me the only way I can save them is to do this. It has to be something on that creepy level. It can't just be, oh, I'm poor and I don't want to tell them that I'm poor, so I'm going to murder them. Like,
I don't know, but
why wouldn't you just leave anyway? Like, the guy's on the run.
Because you're a sane human being.
Right.
So the guy that I was talking about, if anybody wants to look it up after, is John List.
I feel like I've heard of him.
All right.
So, I mean,
but I don't understand. And I guess, okay, maybe it's just because you're not sane, but he seemed to be sane for at least a little while. And I'm sure it's embarrassing to be poor when you're supposed to be rich, I guess. But if your plan is, I'm just going to go into hiding anyway, you don't need to murder your entire family. You can just bail. Like, it's a scumbag move, but guess what? They're still alive.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an option. I mean, that's the rational choice if you want out, is to just leave.
Just leave.
What I thought was interesting about this episode, though, is the guy from Versailles who was the friend.
Yeah.
Was he really a friend?
Good question.
And
why? You didn't think he was a friend? What do you think he was?
Attention seeker?
Yeah, I just didn't get that he was somebody who was that close with the family, that spent a lot of time with them. Now, there was the one man who they interviewed who had spent time with the husband, but they didn't interview anybody except for the woman who had the shop next to the house. Like, we don't know.
And yeah, because I feel like the guy with he said he was there for him when he had his accident. Like, he helped. He wasn't going to be able to play music anymore, and they were childhood friends, but they lived in two completely separate towns.
I don't know. The reason I thought they did it was to show like how important lineage and the noble, how all that played into his feeling this way. And that like he even, the other son, the oldest biological son, was killed at a later time. He had let him leave and then told him to come home and then sort of like delayed the inevitable.
No, I thought that one wasn't his son.
No, the one he killed later was his oldest biological son. The other one had taken his name. He was already gone.
Oh, okay.
That's why they theorized that like he was going to keep him alive to keep the line going, but then he decided to kill him anyway.
And I get that, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have interviewed this man. I'm just saying they didn't interview anybody who I felt like really knew the family. We don't know. Maybe he was odd.
Yeah,
he was odd, and all of a sudden, at one point, they just popped in the fact that they had moved to Florida.
Yeah, that was like weird.
I was like, oh,
and that he was a spy for the DEA.
Like, well, that was the letter that he.
Yeah, but he wrote like an 8-page letter to everyone he knew, saying like, "Don't tell anyone I'm a spy."
Yeah, and we're gone.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I would do. If I was ever a spy, I would email everybody in my contacts and be like,
look, we can't do the podcast anymore because I'm a spy.
The next episode, I would lead with that. Listen, guys, pulling the plug on the podcast. I'm a spy.
So Mac is mentioning the French guy's dainty wrist, but my theory is
he had an accident. He broke his neck. No, he broke his neck.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah, he broke his neck.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, Mac doesn't care. He doesn't have time for that.
Wait, when
he did. He's like, when I had my accident, he said, well, I broke my neck in a car accident and I couldn't play music anymore. And he was talking about his hand, like he couldn't play music.
Was
my strong hand.
We thought he had a stroke, and
I thought he had a stroke.
It turns out he broke his neck. Yeah.
Let's be respectful, though, please. Yeah. Episode 4 is called No Ride Home. This is another one that is actually, I believe, I was reading one of the producers of this, and the most tips since the show has been on Netflix has been about this episode.
And this is a subset of episodes where I would like to title them. This episode 4 and episode 6, where I would like to subtitle Unsolved Mysteries, : the middle of this country is terrifying.
Yeah.
You could definitely call it that. This story is about Alonzo Brooks, who goes missing after a party. He's later found dead. Some believe it's a hate crime. I think most probably would. So this is in Kansas, but it's like bumfuck Kansas.
Like, oh my God. And how about Alonzo Brooks having the worst friends
worst
of all time? So first of all, this is an episode where I think Alonzo is 24 or 23.
22 or 23. Yeah.
He's like early 20s. And they go to a party, and everybody, he's probably the oldest one there by the sound of it. Is like everybody high school, early college type of party. They drive an hour. So there's 4 of them from this one town. They take 2 cars of 2. They go an hour to a party. 2 of the friends leave and with what sounded like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, there's another party. It's like, you just drove an hour. So they leave after 20 minutes. His other friend, who is named Justin and is interviewed in this extensively, he, after like an hour or so, leaves to go get cigarettes. You gotta go get cigarettes. First of all, you're in a town that is like so goddamn small. Like there isn't a close store. It's not like you're like anywhere normal. So anyway, so he leaves, gets lost, which honestly is kind of believable. But anyway,
he was drunk.
We can get to that.
He's drunk.
He's drunk, probably a little bit high, whatever. He goes, but then what's weird is he somehow is able to get in contact with somebody at the party. And again, this happened years ago, so it's not like everybody had like iPhones. This is years ago. Yeah. He gets in contact with somebody. He's like, hey, tell Alonzo that like I'm not going to make it back to the party. Can he get a ride with somebody else? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then so he just like leaves. So like 3 of his friends who were all on this episode were all there. They all left. They left him there after, he had already gotten into an argument earlier in the night with some guys that didn't like him because he was like flirting with a white girl or something. And it's like, how on earth? First of all, you take 2 cars an hour away. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
The fact that you would leave makes no sense. If I ever went to a party 20 minutes down the road and my friends left without me, I'd be fucking pissed.
Ready, Rich? I've known you for like 25 years. Ready?
Yeah.
Hey, you want to go to a party with me an hour away where we don't know anybody?
No, I don't, Ryan.
No, I don't. I would rather stay home and sit on my couch. No, I do not want to do that with you.
Why don't we just go to my house?
It wasn't not even someone's house. It was like an
and that was the weirdest thing.
Uh,
So they go there the next day or like 2 days later, and the house is like abandoned. They
There's
just found
no
some
sign of like
shit bum house.
it didn't look
The
like
whole
a party
thing
was
was
there or
strange.
something.
One of my biggest questions for this one, and maybe it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I thought it was kind of odd, was they interview 3 of Alonzo's friends. And I know the internet is really turned on Justin, and they wonder if he was involved in it. They wonder that he was the guy that went to go get cigarettes. They wonder if he's involved in it. They wonder if you set him up, whatever. But part of the conversation that Justin has is like, hey, Alonzo's going to get a ride home with Adam. Who's Adam? Where's Adam?
We never hear from him.
How about
Never
Adam?
hear from Adam.
Like, there was like a miscommunication. Like Adam, I think he mentions that like we saw Adam the next day, and Adam's like, I thought he already left, or like something like that. But I'm like, I would have liked to heard from Adam because he was at least still at that party after the other 3 left.
Right.
But that's not even the most messed up part of this story.
No,
it's not even.
So the most messed up part to me is that the KBI, the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, the local police, the state police, the FBI dive team comes out looking for this kid. He's gone, like a month and a half or something like that, like a whole month.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day after the police department's like tells the family, like they tell the family the whole time, you cannot be involved. You can't be involved in the investigation. The day after they say like, okay, you're free to go and look. They're out there for a half hour and find him.
Yeah.
Like that blows my mind.
That makes me think it was either an inside job with like, I'm not saying the FBI, but like local police authorities there.
Right.
Either that or somebody got wind of it and was like, hey, I'll be able to we can dump the body now. Like that was sort of one of the theories, right? It was like
the police will stop looking, so
they'll stop looking. We can just dump them. They can find it. We can go on from there.
Or do we know they even really went looking for him?
I mean,
the dive team said that they.
I think he was.
What they did.
And so he was actually in the meat locker, right? That was one of the theories.
That's one of the theories.
Was that he was being held up, he was being frozen there. But I think
what was so surprising to me is how many people had tips about this case, or like when they were showing how many people were having like social media conversations that appear to either been at the party or been friends with this group and know something.
Well, they think, what did they say? They thought like the one kid was like, there's 30, 40, maybe 50 people at the party. It's a lot of people at the party.
No one saw anything. Yeah.
Right. And so now they're trying to come out. Well, what was weird too was like, if you were gonna really cover it up, right? And they've obviously gotten away with it to this point anyway, but they left his boots or his shoes or whatever And so that was really weird. And so like they went there and they're like they found his shoes like just down the road a little bit. And you're
he
like,
must
well,
have been in a car. I mean, he must have been in a car and they must have thrown him out the window or something. The way
why?
they were.
but why
But,
would you
like,
toss them out? Like if you were able to, they basically either hid the body or did something with the body and then dumped the body once they knew the real search was over with. But like the fact that because at first I'm like, I don't know, maybe the kid like was drunk, got lost, and drowned. Crazy, like that could happen.
Yeah.
But then you're like, well, wait a minute, his shoes were over here.
And not
His
only that,
shoes were like in 2 different places.
Right.
The hat was in a different place.
Right.
and
So there's
everything
no
in his
way.
pockets were intact.
Was intact.
But yeah, right. Super fucked. Just
Well,
like the
didn't
first
you-
episode. Yeah.
Didn't you think it was weird that the guy who did the autopsy was like, well, he could have been in the water for 30 days. And then everyone with a mind is like, no,
There was
because
paper in his pocket. He had a note that was like,
there was paper, right?
All
And
of it.
then
No, none of
he
that
did-
makes sense.
he
None
didn't
of that
look-
makes sense.
He didn't seem like
Which-
the brightest.
But doesn't that make you
No.
think that like they were all kind of in on it, the local people who kind of were just like, well, let's just call it this and be done with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so my theory here, right,
Mhm.
is that there's a party, like there's 50 people at a party in this like podunk town. Police get called to the party, right?
Right.
Police find Alonzo, probably drunk, probably, he's been getting in like scuffles with people like the whole night, probably says something to a cop that they don't like, right?
Yeah.
So they take him.
Could be.
Maybe
Yeah.
I don't think it
What
could-
I don't
think
understand
that-
is
that
still-
makes me think kids.
what I still don't get is how did his shoes get to where they are?
It always comes down to the shoes, guys.
It's
Always.
But it's like,
look at the
it's-
goddamn shoes. The shoes.
but like
is
the other
key.
thing too, if you looked at the driveway, they were in 2 different spots.
Right. It
Right, I
wasn't
think-
like
He was in someone's car and they threw him out. And then maybe they brought him back later.
Yeah, because they would have had to gone it the way the drive. One was to the right, one was to the left, so they
Like,
would have had to
thrown
throw
one
them in
out
2
one
different
window.
directions. Yeah.
And out the other windows, they were leaving with him. Maybe they got into a fight. They took him somewhere. And then they were like, oh shit, what do we do with him?
But he left his
This
ID
one,
on.
this one to me, without giving anything away for the next 2, but this one probably has the best chance of getting solved.
Yes.
yes.
Yes, I agree.
It just feels like the potential of more witnesses is higher with this one.
Right. I think
Now it's been a long time though, but
well, I
still.
think this one and the House of Terror one, I think they're gonna find him.
So the other one too that tripped me
Maybe.
out was the fact
he's
that
very nondescript. They say he looks like every man. The guy in House of
Yeah.
Terror. That's
That
the
was an odd
problem.
description of him. He's
Yeah.
tall. He's got dark hair. He looks like everyone.
He wears t-shirts sometimes.
t-shirts sometimes. But like I say to people all the time, like if you describe me I look like 90% of the population.
Yeah.
About 5'10", medium build, dark hair.
Yeah.
Middle-aged
Yeah, but if
white
you were
guy.
like- You're like, yeah, he looks like a Bruce Valanche. They'd find you.
No, they'd find me immediately. But luckily I look nothing like Bruce Valanche. So that's
right.
good.
That's right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Max coming in with these comments about like
We should
Max
just
got some
invited
pretty
Mac
specific-
to the episode here.
he's
Mac,
got some
you
pretty
should come by your
specific
house, I can
ideas
send you
about
the
how to
link.
get rid of somebody.
Yeah.
Just sent Mac the link. You could have joined this for the episode. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was the same guy that he got into a fight with earlier, or if it was probably more likely a group of people,
Yeah.
Right.
right?
Yes.
Although, did you see on the thing they showed up his license at one point, Alonzo, and I want to say he was like 5'8", like 160 or something, like not a very big guy,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah, they
meaning,
made
like,
him out to be like a big
Like a-
guy. Like,
right, because that was what was weird was like his friends
Yeah.
were talking about like on the football field, like he would kick ass and like we love all this stuff, but then they just did like a quick height weight thing. I'm like, 2 guys could easily take care of him.
by the way,
Right.
the other thing that was not to bring it back, but what's his name? Ray Rivera, monster of a guy. What was
Yeah.
he like 6'4", 260?
Now that was a dude, yeah, that guy
Yeah.
was built, yeah.
And his brother, did you see his brother was taller than him?
Well, and wasn't he the one that played water polo?
Water polo.
So he
I'm
was in
telling you-
shape.
dude, I'm telling you right now, I've
Yeah.
known one water polo player in my life. That guy was an absolute unit.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Like an
Yeah.
ox. Like an
Yeah.
absolute oxen. All right. So anyway, any last thoughts on No Ride Home?
Never play dodgeball with a water polo player. That's another story for another time. I will tell you that story. But it's a great story. It's a great Ryan Davey story that I'll tell you off air.
You know, I saw water polo in the at the 1996 Olympics.
Nice.
Yeah, it was at the Georgia Tech Aquatic Center in Atlanta. Yeah,
I could not tread water for more than 20 minutes.
It's a tough sport.
Yeah,
it's a
and it's like violent too. I'm sorry, we're getting off topic here.
Yeah. We'll do next week. We'll do all water polo.
Water polo. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Episode
I'm probably
5. Episode 5 was entitled Berkshire's UFO.
And
a little local flavor.
A Davey family personal connection.
Yeah. And I will say this was my favorite.
What?
I love it. I love this one too.
I love it too. Girl Rye, please. Mute you. I'll do it because this is what Unsolved Mysteries is all about.
This is why. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's just so many. I don't know. There's so many better.
The guy with the long hair made it for me. I forget his name. That guy was the
great.
Best.
So,
but to me, this is what Unsolved Mysteries is all about.
Yes.
This is what this show's about. This reminded me a lot more of the past episodes or the previous iteration of it. This was fantastic to me.
Did they get probed?
Who knows?
First question I have.
I wanted to hear more about what happened, and
I know you did.
That no one could tell.
They saw each other in the probe. The mom saw the light came down. The pages missing from the police book. Yeah, this was an unsolved
great episode. First of all, this happened in 1969. Here in 2020, it's been confirmed that UFOs exist.
They do exist.
So we know UFOs exist. So if you say they don't exist, you're just lying to yourself right now. Now, do aliens exist? Short answer, yes. Do they pull you up into their little saucers and probe you? Again, short answer, yes. Now,
if I told you, ready? Here's a sentence that makes sense in 2020 that if you told me in 1999, I would have not believed you. In the year 2000, if you time traveled back 20 years and you told somebody to their face, in the year 2020, the United States government will confirm that UFOs exist, and the person responsible for that knowledge is the guitar player from Blink-182. You would look at me like I was a fucking lunatic.
He was all over it, though.
But this is where we are now.
Great band.
Yeah,
and that's where we are now. I think they were all very believable. All of the people that were involved there, what they saw, where they were, what happened, all that stuff. Yeah. Now, my wife's friend from work, she was chatting with her about it. Her quote, she does not believe these people, and her quote was, "They've seen too many X-Files."
But the thing seen the X-Files in 1969.
Not only that, but the guy, the guy with the mullet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he saw the girl on the and they weren't together, and they had never discussed it, and they both described the exact same thing.
They saw the exact same thing.
I mean, they all in this one area all saw sightings all around the same time. Why wouldn't you believe them? I mean, they would all have got
because you're being obtuse, Girl Rye. That's why you wouldn't believe them.
I don't believe them. I wanted more information to make it more of an episode.
So that's how I felt about some of the other murders. Like I wanted more information about like the family and things like that. This one I was like,
I don't know. I guess if you're gonna come at me with aliens, you better have a little more proof than I saw this girl and we didn't know each other. Like that.
Didn't you hear what they wipe your brain so you're not supposed to remember it, and just a random couple people did.
There was the story about
and you do, and then you see, you're like, oh, what are these lights? And you're like, oh shit, that's the same thing. We all saw it on the same night.
What about the mother and grandmother switching seats? They put them in the wrong seats.
Fucking explain that to me, Girl Rye. And she never drove.
And they both blacked out. The whole family blacked out, and then when they woke up, they switched seats.
They all got roofied.
That's the famous story. They did not get roofied. They did not go to a club. They did not go to like a rave. That was not what happened.
They were raving with grandma.
Big tease. So as you remember, Richard, I did some time in Salisbury, Connecticut, which is on the border of both New York and
that's a hot spot.
It's a hot spot, but the next town over, the first town over the border from Salisbury is Great Barrington. And one of the first dates I took this beautiful blonde lady on was in the town of Great Barrington. So you actually can see in this episode the main street, like where we went.
How about that?
After that,
Now,
it was on
let
a
me ask you
Sunday.
this.
Then
Let me
I
ask
was
this.
abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
And you
Not
know
to be
how
crass.
I know?
Not to be crass, was there any probing?
There was no probing.
No probing.
Well,
And
I'm old fashioned.
she said she was old fashioned. And then we
I
actually
offered to probe, but she said
we
no.
broke the law. The very next day we broke the law because at the time there was Connecticut blue laws, so we had to drive to New York to get beer on a Sunday and bring it back across state lines.
Oh my god!
But you
You're
never
a
saw an
bootlegger.
alien.
So now you're a
So we
bootlegger.
bootlegged. We
Maybe
bootlegged.
we did, but maybe we were abducted and we just
Maybe we
didn't
were.
You
know.
just don't know because that's I think what they do
They,
is I
they
think
use the zapper.
yep.
Well, have you guys thought about this? That literally every day of your life, you could get Men in Black mind wiped.
Yeah.
You ever think about that?
No, I do. I told Ryan I probably have been probed by aliens.
And by aliens, I mean our neighbor. Episode 6 is entitled "Missing
And-
Witness."
And by neighbors, it's just me going, shh, go back to sleep. Shh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Shh.
Mary,
You're having your dream again.
Mhm.
Episode 6 is
I'm just an alien.
Woo.
Great Barrington. This isn't funny. Episode 6 is entitled "Missing Witness." This one's fucked. Oh, and by the way,
Episode 2 of the middle of this country scares the shit out of me.
yes, it does. Oh, and by the way, another reason why I liked the UFO episode is, and I know it was traumatizing to those people involved, but it's a little bit of a lighter fare rather than
Yeah.
32-year-old guy dead, 38-year-old girl dead, whole family dead, 24-year-old kid dead. You know what I'm saying?
It's like
we needed a little something to
And
break
I
it
hope
up.
I hope we get more of this. I hope there's another UFO one and they describe the same exact thing.
I bet they could even be
Or
like a
Bigfoot.
ghost.
Oh, we need a big
Bigfoot. Yes, cryptids.
Yes.
We need
freshwater
cryptids.
octopi. Let's do it.
The Oklahoma octopus.
Yeah.
I have
The
a
whole
question,
series.
'cause Am I not remembering correctly? Because I believe I watched a lot of Unsolved Mysteries shows as a child. Were they always? Was it this heavy on the true crime cold case?
It was
No.
a mix, but I mean,
No,
there
there
were
was definitely
seasons.
weirdo ones. There was Bigfoot. There was weirdo ones
Yeah.
for sure.
I think-
Wendigos, probably.
I think too, like my parents would probably let me start, and then if it was like a Bigfoot one, they'd be like, "Okay, you can say." If it's like
Yeah.
guy murders whole family, they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna change."
You don't need to watch that one. Yep.
Yeah, no.
This
so,
one's-
so my
Yeah, go
family
ahead.
always let us watch. We've looked back and had family discussions on things that we've watched as families. Like we watched Silence of the Lambs at someone's christening, I think, or on
Yeah,
Easter one.
Katie's.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Katie's.
your wife. Mhm.
Yeah.
Real
I'm, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, we're fine. Everybody's fine. We're fine now.
It's normal.
This one's fucked up. This one's like Davey was saying, middle America is effed. Lena Chapin disappears after she claims to have knowledge of her missing stepfather's fate. Now, this is a story really of Lena Chapin's mother, who is like probably like you call it like the Black Widow almost.
Was it
where
Stacy? Stacy is her name?
I think it might be Stacy. I just call her the mother here in my notes, and she basically
Sandy.
Sandy. Yeah.
Sandy, and she would use her looks, is what they said. And then they showed her, and you're like, wait a minute, what she did what now? But
Her sex appeal. Like
she pulled off the brother swap,
Disgusting.
married both of them.
Was
Married
cheating on
both
one with
guys.
the other one.
Yeah, cheated. Well, yeah, right. Cheated on the one. She was with the one, married to the one. Did the old switcheroo, married him. Now it's almost very clear, and this is what Davey was talking about at the beginning of the episode. Like, you know something, but like, how do you prove it? And so this woman, very clearly, at least based on all the evidence, killed one of her husbands and had some of her kids help her dispose of the body and the evidence.
Now,
And one of the kids
I
was gonna say one of the kids made a confession to the guy's brother, who at both at one point were both her stepfathers. Very confusing, but she made a confession to him, and it's taped. But now, like, that doesn't count apparently.
Yeah.
So the question I had for you, Nicole, and I've been dying to ask you this question: how is it possible for you to be found liable in a civil suit but not convicted for a criminal case?
Because the burden of proof is less in a civil case than it is in a criminal case, and you don't have the same evidentiary standards. so you more evidence can come in a civil trial than it can in a criminal trial.
Because
Like
that's what
OJ.
happened to OJ. Yeah.
100%.
Okay,
So
so now look,
You can,
And that's
it's
why some
wrongful
people
death.
sue. And that's why some
Mhm.
people you'll see
Wrongful death.
sue. They'll do a civil case, and you're like, well, why not a criminal trial? And like sports radio, we dealt with this all the time because Antonio Brown was getting into trouble. And like the argument would be like, well, if you really want to get him, why wouldn't you go to a criminal court? And you're like, well, they feel like they have a better chance of winning the civil trial, even if you technically should be able to win both, but it's just a lot easier to prove in the civil.
But I
And
found
you
it.
also don't have I could be wrong, but I don't think you really have like the person who's bringing the suit in the civil trial can pick judge. I think they're the ones that can pick the judge over jury, where in a criminal trial, the defendant has that right.
Okay.
And you can present better evidence to a judge. Sometimes you don't get the same level of jury nullification. I could be wrong on that though. So
I love looking at the houses too that these people lived in, and they're like, "Oh, they won a civil suit for $7 million." Like, do you honestly believe
Well, they
that
get
you're
any
going
of
to see
it.
a dime?
Yeah.
Well, that's like you're not going to
Right.
see a dime of that.
No, you don't
You
get
know?
any of it. Yeah, this one's just so messed up too. And it's like, so this woman had brainwashed. She was obviously very manipulative, both to these men and all of her kids. Most of her kids have kind of flipped on her and like are trying to get her in trouble, but not all of them. Like some of them are still on her side. It seems. Well, she have like 6 daughters or something.
6
crazy?
daughters.
6. Yeah.
then she stole her grandson.
Well, that's
That's
okay.
perfect.
That was my
such
question.
a killer.
How can she be found guilty in a civil court, right?
Mhm.
And then the daughter is missing, who was supposed to testify against her. And then how does the court say, "Yep, you should be the guardian of this missing woman's son"?
My guess is that she was made guardian before the civil case went forward, and that then somebody would probably have to come in and claim that she was unfit and use the civil trial against her. But if there was no evidence and she'd already been awarded,
Well, because
Yeah,
they said that when the girl went missing, 24 hours later,
she filed abandonment charges.
abandonment.
so
Which
by the
is
time
such a
they brought a
scummy move.
civil suit, my guess is she'd already been the guardian for a long time.
But then when you lose something like that, that doesn't make you unfit. No.
Not a criminal case.
Well, so it could. I
Like,
think
in
it
front of
could,
sisters.
but somebody would have to come in and challenge that guardianship.
Mm.
And maybe the sisters aren't.
Maybe they're not doing it, or maybe they're just trying to get visitation. And even though she may have killed the mother, it's kind of tricky. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a criminal conviction to use against her. So it's,
Fuck.
So, have you guys seen the movie Dear Zachary? Have you seen that? I always brought that
Yes.
up. It reminded me of that,
mhm.
and I said
No.
that to Ride. Like,
I've heard
oh,
of it.
do not watch it.
Super sad. Oh, you
It's
told
Oh
me
my
about
god!
this one.
Oh my
on
god!
a-
It
on
will
the podcast.
absolutely. It'll break you emotionally.
All right, I won't
I
watch that.
sobbed and sobbed
Yeah.
and sobbed.
No,
Oh,
I can't do it. So really the mysteries now, I mean, again, this is another one kind of like episode 2 where like you kind of know who did it, who was responsible for it. But one of the issues is like where is her body? Because that's the big issue. And that's what all the people are talking about on like Reddit and everything is like if you're gonna try to get a case going here, because she's technically missing, right? Like she's like they don't
yeah.
and so they've looked in a few places, but wasn't there like the weird story, like the house that burned down and like whatever else? And like, there's clearly like they're covering something up and like we have no idea where
Right.
she is.
I guess
No clue.
that was my issue with this episode. I was like, well, what's the mystery? Like, are we trying to figure out if someone can find the missing daughter? If she is alive? I don't know.
She's
Yeah.
dead.
It's, right. It seems
she's dead.
to me that like they're both dead and that this woman did it.
Right. Frustrating. It's super frustrating.
This one frustrated me.
This one frustrated the shit out of me. What was the most interesting episode to you? Let's go around the horn here. Let's go with we'll go Davey, Girl, Ride, Nicole.
The most interesting episode?
Yeah, the most interesting.
I thought was the first one because I love the idea of like not the Illuminati, but like the Freemasons and like this like how this guy was like supposedly jumped from this roof but couldn't have made like there was so many things about the case that I found intriguing and that I like Nicole said I wanted to know way more than what we got.
That one probably has the most unanswered questions.
Right, because this normal guy, this supposedly normal guy, who's like a happy-go-lucky dude who just all of a sudden one day, and like they never talked about like they never talked to the house guest.
Right.
No.
Like they said there was the house guest who like heard him get on the phone.
She was there.
And,
She's like, oh yeah, he like took
there.
off and took a phone call and left.
Claudia, why not talk to her on the show?
Right.
Or maybe she said no. I don't know, but
she might be the most interesting, right?
Yeah.
One had me hooked. I don't think any of them really lived up to one. Like I watched them all and I enjoyed them, but like you guys said, I feel like I would take more.
I think it was pretty strategic to put that as the first episode.
It's clearly the best episode.
For Netflix, for people who are going to binge it, that's the one. If any of the other ones were first, you might be a little bit like more hesitant to keep going. Yeah. Nicole?
So I think the UFO one.
Yeah, you know what? Hey.
Like you said, it was the most unsolved mystery of the episode. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
I did like the UFO episode. The most likely to be solved, I think we're all agreement in the No Ride Home, Alonzo Brooks.
Or House of Terror. House of Terror or No Ride Home.
Okay.
In a day with like facial recognition and like all that stuff, like someone's got to find
9 years.
Right.
That's crazy.
But no one's really been looking for him.
Right.
Now
No
they're
one
looking for
gone
him.
to South America and gotten plastic surgery.
All right. What was the worst episode to you?
I fell asleep in the House of Terror. I fell asleep on that one.
I don't understand how.
Because it was.
I don't know.
I think it was the French language. It was nice.
Second
and calm.
one was the hair salon. The lady at the hair salon, 13 minutes.
Oh, that was a good one.
I like that one. I felt so bad for the son, but that was a good one.
I would say
the French one I had a harder time with.
The which one?
The French one.
But the other one, too, like the Alonzo Brooks one too, was just like it wasn't any unsolved. It was just pretty straightforward. It was just like a shitty police work.
Yeah, I think House of Terror may have been the worst one, just because it was a messed up story, but then you're like, basically the only mystery is like, where's this guy?
Yeah, there's no.
Whereas at least in the other ones, you're like, all right, well, what happened? What happened? I still think that there could be like a devil angle, but I got you.
No, but like the thing that they're like, he was killed. Each of the family members was shot in the head with a .22 long rifle. With a silencer. The guy had a .22 caliber rifle with a long rifle. Like, there's no mystery.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Silencer.
The mystery is where did he go? That's the mystery.
All right.
I don't know. Whatever.
All right, so we're gonna get 6 more episodes later this year. I don't know the date. Yes.
The thing I didn't like was between the time that they how long was it? And maybe I just missed this with this episode, but between when the family was killed and they really truly figured out that they were dead, how long was that?
It was like months, wasn't it?
No. It was like 8 days. But over that time, he made it a point to stop at places, go to an ATM, wave at things.
Yes.
He waved at the king, to make them think I'm not running. I'm going to go kill myself. But
Got it.
It's elaborate setup. That's when Ryan fell asleep. I'm like, that was the most intriguing part.
I fell asleep when he was
clear that
he was at an ATM or he was using his credit card in places, so they knew where he was.
But they weren't tracking him. This was all they all figured that out after.
After
he had time to get away.
He had time to get away, and he had clearly this was a well thought out and executed murder, and he, in my mind, knew he was going to get away with it. Knew he was going to get away. If he was going to kill himself, why wouldn't he have just done it in the parking lot?
Right. No, he did.
Right.
He was trying to escape.
Right. They never found a gun. They never found that big gun.
It's not a big gun. 22 is a very small gun.
I don't know what guns it's like.
Very small caliber bullet.
It's the smallest gun.
I think it is the smallest caliber.
You guys have anything else you wanted to say, good, bad, or indifferent on Unsolved Mysteries?
It's definitely worth your time. But the best part about this is we've given, if you haven't watched it, I don't know why you'd be getting into spoilers at this point, but
save that.
We've given you the playbook on which ones to watch and which ones to skip. So
yeah.
There you go.
We could skip pick of the pod unless you guys have anything you want to recommend.
I do have something that we. So Ryan and I had watched this a couple times, but it's on Hulu now. The first 2 seasons are on Hulu. It's a game show. If you guys haven't watched Holy Moly,
oh my god,
it's amazing.
So good.
So it's a mini golf competition. Steph Curry is the executive producer. Rob Riggle and Who's the guy who does baseball? Joe.
Fuck.
His name is Jeff.
No,
All right.
Joe
I forget his name.
Piscopo.
No, he has like an Italian name like that, but I forget. But they're the host.
Joe Jackson.
Rob Riggle is hysterical, and it's like basically like the show Wipeout, but with mini golf.
Okay.
They have to play mini golf and then go to the next part of the hole. They have to like
You get crushed. You just get crushed.
We watch it as a family. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Watch Holy Moly. It's funny as hell.
Okay.
Nicole, you got anything?
I guess I would just say go out if you're interested in true crime and you don't know about the List family and the murders. If you're interested in that, find a true crime.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm reading Educated by Tara Westover. That's fantastic. If anybody's looking for something to read, it's a memoir about a girl that grew up in a fundamentalist family who wasn't educated and how she gets herself out into college. Very interesting.
Awesome.
All right. Very, very good. You can rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and just about everywhere else you can get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Dork Podcast. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Dork Podcast. Davey's on Twitch, about 3 times a week now, right?
Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, baby. And we do Stream Team with Shime Time on Wednesdays now.
All right, so go to twitch.tv/RVonD. And also, we are part of the #Dork Shared Gooniverse.
Oh my
Check
God.
out the Facebook page, and Davey's on every goddamn episode of every podcast now.
Hang on. We did the video game minute. I didn't do my intro. Please go and check out the great people of Wild Bill Soda. The video game minute is always brought to you by Wild Bill Soda, wildbillsoda.com. They're rebranding now, Richard. I can't tell you what they're making.
Scandals and Animals?
Well, we just had lemonades and iced teas drop, and there's more things coming, and I cannot wait.
Palmer,
I cannot wait. I'm getting those this week, so we'll do some drink recipes with those as well.
Oh boy! All right, that'll do it for us. Oh, Ryan, what do they say about wombats?
You talking to me? You're talking to the other Ryan?
God damn it!
Square buttholes, baby.
Yeah, they poop squares.